Most Americans believe their 401k plan is the safest path to a comfortable retirement. They contribute consistently, take the employer match, and trust that time will do the rest. But behind the reassuring statements and automatic deposits lies a structural issue that quietly erodes decades of savings, fees that compound against you. A typical 401k can carry total annual costs between 1% and 2% of assets once you include fund expenses, management, and administrative fees. That may sound minor, but over a 30-year period, it's equivalent to losing almost a third of your nest egg. Here's the math. If you invest $500 per month for 30 years, earning a gross 7% annual return, you'll end up with about $610,000. If the same investment carries a 1.5% annual fee, your balance falls to roughly $470,000. That's a $140,000 shortfall, money that didn't vanish in a market crash, but was silently transferred through ongoing fees. The illusion comes from the way most retirement plans are marketed. The focus is on compounding returns, tax deferral, and employer matching, all real advantages. But the conversation rarely includes long-term fee drag. Employers often outsource plan administration to financial firms, whose profits depend on assets under management and fund selection. Participants assume professional oversight guarantees efficiency, when in reality, many 401k menus include funds with expense ratios 5 to 10 times higher than low-cost alternatives. Behavioral habits reinforce this trap. Most savers set and forget. They enroll once, select a target date fund, and rarely check performance beyond the headline number. Statements show portfolio growth, but they don't show what it could have been without the embedded costs. Over decades, that missing compounding is what separates early retirement from working an extra 5 or 10 years. Another reason this problem persists is that fees are expressed as a small percentage, not as lifetime cost. A 1.5% annual fee doesn't sound painful, yet over time, it captures the same power of compounding that investors rely on for growth. The market compounds gains, fees compound losses. Since both forces act continuously, the effect grows non-linearly. Small inefficiencies today become major shortfalls later. Most Americans entering their 50s believe they're on track, only to realize their real savings won't match retirement expectations. That's not because they contributed too little, but because their 401k operated inefficiently for decades. The system wasn't designed with optimization in mind. It was designed for participation. For providers, participation equals revenue. The core issue isn't the existence of fees. Administration has a cost, but the lack of transparency and incentive alignment. When employees don't evaluate costs and employers don't prioritize low-fee plans, the result is predictable. Compounding works, but not in the saver's favor. The average investor doesn't notice this erosion until the final decade before retirement, when growth begins to stall despite continued contributions. By that point, the structural leakage is built in. You can't retroactively recover compounded losses. You can only decide whether to stop them now. To understand why this problem persists, you need to look beyond the numbers and examine how the 401k system is built, financially, behaviorally, and structurally. The issue isn't individual negligence. It's systemic design that rewards participation, not performance. A typical 401k plan operates through several layers: plan administration, investment management, and advisory services. Each layer extracts a fee. The plan administrator bills the employer for record keeping. The investment manager charges an expense ratio on the funds you hold. And sometimes, there's a financial advisor compensated through asset-based fees or commissions. Each fee may appear small in isolation: 0.3%, 0.6%, 0.8%, but in aggregate, they can exceed 1.5% of total assets yearly. That amount compounds in reverse, reducing your long-term returns by a consistent margin. The reason many investors fail to recognize this drag is the disconnect between visible outcomes and hidden costs. Investors receive quarterly statements showing market performance, not cost impact. If your portfolio grows 8% and the fee consumes 1.5%, you see a plus 6.5% return. Still positive, still comforting. Yet over decades, the 1.5% differential accumulates into tens or hundreds of thousands in opportunity cost. Consider two identical employees, Sarah and Tom. Both are 30 years old. Both contribute $6,000 per year until age 60. Both earn an average 7% market return. Sarah's 401k charges 0.4% in total expenses. Tom's plan costs 1.8%. After 30 years, Sarah's account grows to about $565,000. Tom's ends at roughly $400,000. Tom contributed exactly the same amount, achieved the same gross return, but lost over $160,000 to structural inefficiency. No market volatility, no poor decision-making, just hidden friction. The underlying behavioral factor is complacency. The automatic nature of the 401k makes participants feel protected, as if someone smarter is managing the plan. Enrolling and forgetting feels like discipline. But in a system where cost transparency is low, inaction equals acceptance of inefficiency. Standard financial advice often reinforces this problem. The popular message, just keep contributing, don't time the market, is sound in principle, but incomplete in practice. It addresses volatility risk, not fee erosion. Following that advice blindly ensures consistent contributions, but it doesn't optimize where those contributions flow. Most educational materials focus on asset allocation and psychological resilience, while cost optimization, a controllable factor with guaranteed mathematical benefit, remains underemphasized. Another structural driver is employer incentives. Most companies select 401k providers based on administrative convenience, not fee competitiveness. The plan meets legal requirements, the provider handles compliance, and employees enroll automatically. No one inside the organization has a reason to audit fund costs annually. The result is systemic inertia. The plan continues, participants assume it's efficient, while fund providers enjoy predictable, compounding revenue. For many workers, the 401k becomes the largest financial asset they'll ever own, yet few treat it as an investment portfolio requiring ongoing evaluation. The absence of individual responsibility, combined with the illusion of institutional oversight, creates a perfect scenario for long-term inefficiency. The deeper you look, the clearer the pattern becomes. The 401k problem isn't about lack of effort or knowledge. It's about misplaced trust in a system that prioritizes convenience and compliance over outcome. Until investors learn to measure cost impact with the same seriousness as return expectations, this hidden leakage will continue, quietly, predictably, and without visible crisis until it's too late to reverse. Most 401k investors make a predictable set of errors that amplify the fee problem over time. These aren't random mistakes. They're systematic choices driven by inertia and incomplete information. The consequences compound for 5, 10, and 20 years, turning minor inefficiencies into major shortfalls. Mistake 1. Accepting default fund options without review. Target date funds are the most common choice. About 70% of participants select them. They offer simplicity, but many carry expense ratios of 0.8% to 1.2% plus plan fees. A worker who defaults here pays more than necessary without realizing it. Mistake 2. Failing to audit total costs annually. Expense ratios and administrative fees change over time, but only 20% of investors check their statements for this. Most focus on balance growth, missing when costs creep up from 1% to 1.8%. Mistake 3. Prioritizing gross returns over net returns. Investors chase top-performing funds based on past returns, ignoring that high fees erode those gains. A fund returning 9% with 1.5% fees nets 7.5%. A lower-cost alternative returning 8% nets 7.9% after 0.1% fees. Mistake 4. Overlooking employer plan quality variation. Companies with similar matching programs can have dramatically different fee structures. One plan might average 0.5% total costs, another 1.7%. Employees rarely compare. Now consider the long-term impact. Take two workers contributing $10,000 annually for 30 years, starting at age 30, with a 7% gross market return. The gap grows exponentially because fees compound daily, reducing the principal available for growth. By age 50, 20 years in, the difference is $59,000. By retirement, it's over $300,000, enough to fund a decade of supplemental income. This divergence happens regardless of income. A $50,000 earner contributing 6% loses the same percentage of growth as a $150,000 earner. The problem isn't how much you earn, it's how efficiently your savings compound. High earners may feel the absolute dollar loss more acutely, but the structural inefficiency affects everyone proportionally. Over 10 years, the damage is manageable, a 7% shortfall. Over 20 years, it becomes structural, 15% of savings gone. At 30 years, it's catastrophic, 30% of retirement wealth transferred. Most people don't notice because the portfolio still grows, just not enough. These mistakes create a feedback loop. Early losses mean less principal for later growth, widening the gap further. The final decade before retirement is when this hits hardest. Growth slows naturally, but fees continue unabated, leaving savers underprepared despite years of discipline. The key realization: this isn't a market problem, a savings problem, or an income problem. It's a decision problem. The tools to avoid it exist within every 401k plan, but most investors never use them. The consequences aren't hypothetical. They're mathematical certainties playing out across millions of accounts right now. The solution to the 401k fee problem involves 3 steps. Audit your current costs, select lower cost funds within your plan, and establish a simple annual review process. This approach preserves your contributions and employer match while eliminating unnecessary drag. No market timing, no stock picking, just structural efficiency. Start with an audit. Log into your 401k account and locate the expense details, typically under fund fact sheets or plan fees. Look for 2 numbers: the expense ratio, annual percentage charged by each fund for management, and any plan-level administrative fees, charged by the provider to the employer, often passed to participants. Add them together for your total annual cost. If the combined figure exceeds 0.5%, you have room to improve. Next, identify low-cost options already available in your plan. Most 401ks include institutional index funds or ETFs tracking broad market indices like the S&P 500 or total U.S. stock market. These track market performance without active management, keeping expense ratios at 0.03% to 0.10%. Compare them directly. A fund with 0.05% expense ratio costs $5 per year per $10,000 invested. The same allocation in a 1.0% actively managed fund costs $100 annually on the same amount. Switch your contributions to these low-cost options immediately. The transaction is free and automatic. For existing balances, sell higher fee funds and buy the low-cost equivalents. This triggers no tax event inside a 401k, and most plans allow reallocations quarterly without penalties. Prioritize funds with the lowest total cost first, regardless of short-term performance differences. Over time, net returns will favor the lower cost option because every basis point saved compounds forward. Here's the mechanics in action. Take the same $10,000 annual contribution from Part 3, now with 0.3% total fees instead of 1.5%. After 30 years at 7% gross return, high fee scenario, $715,000. Low fee scenario, $1,020,000. The $305,000 difference arises purely from retaining more principal for compounding. Each year, the low-fee portfolio reinvests 1.2% more than the high-fee one, creating a widening gap through mathematics, not speculation. This solution remains stable for three reasons. First, index funds eliminate manager risk. They hold the entire market, so individual stock failures don't matter. Second, broad diversification, thousands of companies across sectors, matches historical equity returns with lower volatility than concentrated bets. Third, the strategy requires no prediction or adjustment beyond annual fee checks. Markets fluctuate, but cost control is constant. Set a recurring calendar reminder for January each year. Review fees, confirm allocations haven't drifted above 0.5% total, and rebalance if needed, typically 5 to 10 minutes. If your employer plan lacks competitive options, total fees stubbornly above 1%, explore rolling over to an IRA after leaving the job. IRAs from Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab offer identical low-cost index funds with no minimums or trading costs. This isn't optimization through complexity. It's removing friction from a proven system. By controlling the one variable fully in your power, costs, you ensure compounding works entirely for you. The result is predictable growth, not variable outcomes. The 401k fee problem follows a clear cause and effect chain. Hidden costs compound against you, creating a structural drag that reduces retirement savings by 25 to 30% over decades. The solution reverses this through three interconnected steps: audit, reallocate, and monitor, forming a simple, repeatable system that prioritizes efficiency over complexity. This framework ensures every dollar contributed works fully toward long-term growth, regardless of market conditions. Here's how the full system operates. First, you establish a baseline by calculating your total annual costs, expense ratios plus administrative fees. Second, you shift all future contributions and existing balances to the lowest cost index funds or ETFs available in your plan, targeting under 0.5% total fees. Third, you review the setup annually to confirm costs haven't increased and allocations remain aligned. These steps require no market predictions, no trading frequency, and no external advice. Just basic arithmetic applied consistently. The impact unfolds predictably over time. In year one, the change feels minor. Switching from 1.5% to 0.3% fees saves about 1.2% of your balance immediately, or roughly $120 on a $10,000 portfolio. That saved amount compounds forward, but the real shift appears by year 5. With $10,000 annual contributions at 7% gross return, a low-fee portfolio reaches approximately $57,000, while the high-fee version sits at $55,000, a $2,000 gap from retained principal alone. By year 10, the low-fee account grows to $128,000 versus $119,000, widening to a $9,000 difference as compounding accelerates on the larger base. At the 30-year horizon, the system delivers its full effect. The low-fee scenario accumulates $1,020,000. The high-fee one, only $715,000. That $305,000 represents preserved wealth, enough for a decade of supplemental retirement income or protection against longevity risk. The progression isn't linear. Early savings compound into larger gaps later, turning a controllable decision into substantial security. Income level doesn't alter the math. A 6% contributor on $50,000 salary sees the same proportional benefit as one on $150,000. To implement this starting today, follow these exact steps in sequence. Spend 15 minutes logging into your 401k portal. Download the latest fund fact sheets and locate each fund's expense ratio, typically listed prominently. Add any plan level administrative fee from your summary statement. Your provider must disclose this by law. Calculate the weighted average across your holdings. Identify the lowest cost options. Look for funds labeled index, institutional, or tracking S&P 500/total market with expense ratios under 0.10%. Submit an allocation change for all future contributions to these funds. Most plans process this instantly. For existing balances, execute a reallocation. Sell high-fee holdings and purchase the low-cost equivalents. Confirm no transaction fees or restrictions apply. Then verify the change in your next statement. Set a recurring January calendar reminder labeled 401k Fee Audit. Each year, repeat the cost calculation and adjust if total fees exceed 0.5%. If your plan remains uncompetitive after 2 years, prepare for an IRA rollover upon job change. This system succeeds because it leverages compounding in your favor through controllable inputs. Fees represent the one guaranteed leakage in every portfolio. Eliminating it ensures maximum growth from market returns, tax advantages, and employer matches. Over time, discipline and cost control outperforms speculation or timing. Retirement planning reduces to this: contribute consistently, minimize friction, review methodically. The mathematics handle the rest.